Welcome to Childcare Conversations, the podcast where early childhood leaders like you get real-world strategies, honest talk, and a whole lot of support. Whether you're running one center or many, we're here to help you lead with confidence and clarity. This episode is brought to you by our summer partner, Childcare Business Growth, your go-to solution for filling spots, increasing revenue, and scaling your childcare business without the burnout. We're proud to partner with a team that's as committed to your success as we are. Learn more at childcarebusinessgrowth.com. Now, let's get into today's conversation, one we think you're really going to love.
We are so excited to have a guest today that's going to share with us all kinds of goodies related to, well, I'm just going to say dealing with everybody's emotions, not just our own, not just the children in our classrooms, and not just our teachers. And so Diane Goyette is with us today. And Diane, why don't you introduce yourself real quick, and then we are going to start our conversation.
Thank you so much, Kate. So I'm delighted to be here with you two today. And what I would like to say about myself is just a little snippet about why I am on the mission that I'm on right now, which is to support the adults who work with young children, whether they're parents or teachers or administrators or in any other role, because your work is so incredibly important. It's hard, it's challenging, and we need for you to have the support so that you can then fulfill my vision, which is a more compassionate world where supported adults cherish and nurture each and every child. And I would say, including the challenging ones, because that's part of the reason is my background is in typical child development. And then I had a daughter who was anything but typical. And she brought me on a parenting journey that I have to say I was quite reluctant to go on. And but finally, after, she grew up and we are still figuring things out, I feel like I have figured out enough to give you a framework that not only supports children with challenging behaviors, the emotional needs that they have, but also your own emotional needs, your teachers, and it works with spouses, significant others, your kids, teenagers. So anyway,
well, I'm so
excited to share that with you.
Absolutely, Diane. I'm so excited to get to that framework. But let's just talk a little bit about the directors who are listening. And Carrie, I know that you've got some thoughts on what you've been hearing from directors in the last probably 6 or 7 months. And so I'm going to toss it to you to then toss it to Diane.
Well, so this school, the 2024-2025 school year, and now as we're going into the 2025-26 school year, that just hurts my head. But what I've been hearing a lot about is that there are so many more kids who are having emotional needs or are at least perceived to be diagnosable. I don't know that there are more kids who are diagnosable, but there's at least a perception by an awful lot of directors that there's more kids in their programs that are diagnosable, and they don't know how to support their teachers in dealing with those needs. Instead of the teachers constantly sending kids up to the front to be in the office, which means the director can't do her work, and the teacher is not learning how to support that child.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question.
Uh-oh.
Just for those who aren't 100% sure, and again, we are not medical professionals, but when you're saying diagnosable, why don't you give us just a little bit of a, not so what you think they might be diagnosed with, but what behaviors people are seeing that are causing you to use that phrase?
Okay, so what people are seeing in the classroom is that they're seeing a lot of kids who have poor emotional regulation, poor impulse control, and low frustration tolerance. I think those are the three that I hear the most about. And I'm hearing directors and teachers.
So they all need a cup of coffee.
Well,
sounds like me before a cup of coffee.
Do they need coffee or do they need a Benadryl? But the question is, the teachers and directors are trying to put labels on these kids. And I don't know about you, but I have yet to run across a director or an owner who is a doctor. Like I've come across ones that are PhDs, but that doesn't necessarily make you a diagnostician. And you can think all day long that that kid has oppositional defiant disorder, but you're not able legally to diagnose them. And what we have to deal with, since we're not the ones diagnosing, is how do we support the teachers to support the kids and help the teachers learn and grow in how to handle all of that. And, you know, you were talking, Diane, about supporting their emotions as well as supporting the kids' emotions. And so I think that that is very, very important, because just passing on the quote unquote problem children from the classroom to the office doesn't serve the child, doesn't serve the teacher, and doesn't serve the administrator. Now, sometimes the teachers think it serves them because they've gotten that problem out of their room for that 15 minutes. But that kid's going to be there in 30 minutes, and they're going to be there the rest of the day and tomorrow and the next day. So it doesn't really serve the teacher. So,
Sorry, I'm
no, I was
jumping
going to
in
say,
on
so
you,
Diane,
Carrie.
how do we help with that?
Um, Interesting that you should start there, which is actually the number one priority that the priority emotional need that we all have, especially young children who are living in the emotional and survival part of their brain, and that is the need for connection or relationships. What brain research has taught us, especially in the last 10 years, but ever since the 90s, we learned so much about how children's brains grow and develop and what they need to thrive. And the most important, I'm going to paraphrase one of my favorite quotes from the Harvard Center on the Developing Child. And they say basically that the most important factor for children to develop that resilience, that ability to regulate their own emotions and everything, is the caring, supportive relationship of one, at least hopefully one adult.
Like a teacher.
And so,
like a teacher.
exactly. And that's where, exactly. So here's the thing. It's good news for you, but it means you have to support your teachers. Those of you who are directors, I'm saying it's actually good news for everybody, because have you ever noticed that if you have something that's easy to do, and so you get through it, and then you're just kind of like, yep, okay, that went well. And so yeah. Now, picture that kid that comes to your teacher's classroom, the one that the teacher kind of goes, ugh, why are they never, ever, ever absent? Okay, that was my daughter, just so you know. And not that I sent her to school sick, but she really didn't like ever have colds and strep throat or anything for a long time. So she was always there. She had very challenging behaviors. And I talk in circles sometimes. So I just want to circle back for just a second to the diagnosable part and share some wisdom from another of the experts I based my framework on. And that is Dr. Ross Greene, who wrote a book called The Explosive Child. And he says he calls some children explosive because it seems like something happens and their behavior just, like an explosion. And he says these children have these behaviors, and they can be all over the, as he puts it, psychological map. Okay. So the good news also is we don't have to be diagnosticians. We don't need to know what that label is, because Dr. Greene is telling us it doesn't matter. What matters is what's happening in their brain and body in that moment, how we support them in the classroom, and then the skills that they need to build later when they are calm and ready to take in information. And so I just wanted to throw that in there so that you would know that don't worry about that. And you're not going to worry about solving the child's emotional regulation problem in the moment when the teacher's having a rough time, because guess what? That teacher needs to have that primary relationship with that child.
So
And believe
Diane,
me, it is, yes,
I was going to say, I have a question.
yes.
You've referred to your framework. Does your framework have a name, or how do we want to reference your framework other than your framework?
Ah, thank you so much for mentioning that. It was so funny. Somebody told me it needs a sexier name. So if I'm open to suggestions,
Oh,
but for
Carrie's
right
always about
now,
getting something sexy.
Yep.
but
Carrie's
for
all
right
about sexy.
now, I'm all about alliteration. And my framework is called the 4 C's, like the letter C. I don't know if I need to go forwards or backwards. Anyway, on the camera. The 4 C's framework of emotional support. And so the first C is connection, which stands for that all important relationship. And so that's where this addresses what Carrie's saying, that you all as directors, you get frustrated with, because a teacher has a problem with a child's behavior. It gets a little out of control. Of course, their job is to keep everyone safe at first. And so they're calling in the reinforcements, but they're expecting you as the director to take the child who is probably not doing so well emotionally at that moment out of the classroom. Sometimes a different space is helpful. However, remember back to the most important thing is the relationship with a caring adult. And since your teachers are the ones that are the caring adults in the classroom all day long, it is their responsibility to handle that child, because that child is going to feel safest with that adult. And so when you come in to reinforce and help keep everyone safe, you're taking the rest of the class to the book corner to read them a book, or whatever it is that they need help with in that moment.
Yeah,
So
I think that's exactly right, because you have trust. If a child does not trust, a child cannot learn. And part of what we're trying to help them learn is some emotional regulation, right? And they trust their teacher because their teacher is with them every day. And if instead we're pulling that kid out of the classroom, that is going to feed the dysregulation, not calm it down. So if the teacher and the child step out of the classroom and the administrator goes in and handles the rest of the class, that's going to support that trusting relationship.
exactly. And in my trainings about the 4 C's framework, I talk at length about strategies within each C. But today, I'm sure we just only have time to skim the surface. So I'm just going to tell you what the 4 C's are, and but let you know that there are some pretty simple strategies that you can use both in the moment when the child is upset, as well as later on, where you strengthen that relationship so that the child feels safe and they feel like they can trust you.
All right, so
Now,
I'm gonna jump back real quick, just because I want to just remind everybody, if you're listening, and I know we've talked about kids who perhaps are diagnosable, but remember, some days kids are just having a bad day, or they're looking for something maybe they're not getting at home. So it may not have anything really wrong. It could just be they're the attention seeking child. So, and so when we do separate them out and send them down to the office, that's exactly what they want, right? They want that connection with that adult, which is still part of your 4 C's, but we have to also sometimes look at patterns and how does that behavior continue. And I'm sure that's part of your 4C framework. So I'm going to ask you real quick, can you give us all 4 C's? Because I keep wanting to write down what all of them are, and I'm only on the
yeah,
first.
and we haven't even gotten there yet. But okay, I'm gonna throw a challenge out there, Kate, for you and for all of you directors that are there. Saying that a child is having attention-seeking behavior comes from a behaviorist approach, where we look at what is this child either trying to get or get out of in the classroom.
Mhm.
Okay, and hopefully we'll have time where I can share a little bit more about this brain-body connection and the stronger messages that are coming from inside the child. So I just want to challenge all of you, if you haven't heard of this before, just reframe, just switch that word, and instead of calling it attention seeking, call it relationship seeking, because we all need to feel safe with who we are with. And perhaps they don't feel safe because somebody just bumped into them or knocked over their block tower or whatever. They are seeking relationship with you maybe they're not toddler age, but picture that we all do this. We run to the skirt, if you will, right? When I got in a fender bender with my husband's new car, I was very, very upset. And I run to him. Kind of hysterical, I might say, but anyway, we all do that. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out for you all as a point to ponder. Okay, so here we go. The 4 C's, basically 3 of them are three, what I call the 3 C's of co-regulation. And I hope you know what that is, where we, share our frontal lobes with them and our emotional regulation with them. So that's connection, which we just talked about already. Calming, because telling a child, go over there and calm yourself is not very effective, because guess what? They're relationship seeking in that moment. They need us. They're clinging to our skirt, so to speak. And so we have learned from this brain research that it's better not to separate the child immediately. If they're ready to go to the calming down corner themselves, that's great, but it needs to be the child's choice. So connection, calming, and then the third C of co-regulation, and this is my own take because it's one of my favorite words, compassion. Compassion means empathy with a desire to help. Okay, empathy is I understand how you're feeling. Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't like coming inside on a beautiful day either. That's empathy. Compassion adds the how can we make this better? I wish we could stay up. Sometimes it's just I wish I could help. I wish we could change our schedule today. Or, I'm right here to help you. Let's blow bubbles together or whatever. So connection, calming, and compassion, it's not a 1, 2, 3. It's an all melded together kind of way that we give emotional support to children who are acting out, melting down. And yes, even the ones who did something that we think is just totally mean in the moment, because typically, again, think about this for a second. It's called fight or flight. I know you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
This is a stress response because your brain stem is constantly going around, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Your emotional center, the limbic area where your amygdala is scanning the environment going, do I belong? Am I loved? Do people care for me? Okay. When those things are activated, and it can be perceived because of, this bad guy with a deep voice, and then somebody else with a deep voice comes, let's not assume it's the family's fault necessarily, but what I'm just saying is it's complicated. And so at any rate, when the brain is doing that, it's sending these chemicals, right? Cortisol in the brain, adrenaline through the body, and all the other stuff I don't know about. And giving that child or adult, as the case may be, we've all lost it, I hope, to run away or to fight. Now, that's a very powerful message. It's coming from inside. And these little people, they haven't been around but only months, if you think about it. And
absolutely. So what's number 4?
hang on, let me just finish this. I promise I'll get to it. I promise. But I've got to throw this in there, because let's not punish children for listening to their bodies. Of course they can't hit and run away, but that's what their body's telling them. So that's why we give them the 3 C's. Okay, I was wrapping it up, but thank you for the reminder. Okay.
I'm like,
now,
no, I want number 4.
Number 4, the 4th C is capacity building of self-regulation. We make it possible. We build their capacity for self-regulation. That's where we teach them skills. We model for them. We play games that get them to stop and think, because research shows that helps them build the emotional regulation skills. Sometimes we have to adjust either our expectations of individual children, because that one always does need to go get a book or something to help me at group time, because he can't sit still during group time. So we may adjust our expectations of individual children, or we may adjust the environment as a whole, because it may be overstimulating at some times or whatever. So capacity building has lots and lots of strategies, and it's basically it's a combination of all those developmentally appropriate practices that you do, to teach children other skills and manage the classroom and all that other stuff. So it's not really something new, except for that we can then provide connecting activities to build the relationship so that children feel stronger emotionally and safer and
And I
hopefully
can see
won't fall apart so
Carrie's
easily.
trying really hard to be nice and let you finish. But I can see her. She's going, it's right here. It's right here. Okay, Carrie.
Well, there
Okay,
there
go
is a
ahead.
thing on the tip of my brain, which is two of my favorite ways to help kids calm and center are blowing bubbles and playing with Play-Doh. And as you're talking, like I'm going, okay, so the teacher needs to be modeling when she's having a hard time with her emotional regulation, going to the calming center and blowing bubbles herself. And she needs to be talking about the fact that I need a break right now, so I'm going over here and I'm blowing bubbles, or going to the table and pounding on some Play-Doh as hard as she possibly
Okay,
can.
so if you're a parent of a teenager, you might need these skills too. As a parent of a young adult, I need these skills too.
But
Which
I
I
mean,
think is important to identify when you need them and to say it out loud, because a lot of times we don't have the words, or even some of our staff don't have the words. So I think that if you are having a bad day as a teacher, as a director, as a parent, as a spouse, putting words to whatever you're feeling, fight or flight, you need to calm down and tell people what you're doing, I think actually opens up a great opportunity for communication and connection, because you're saying, I'm feeling this. This is what I'm going to do to help myself. And so it is that whole modeling, instructional coaching. Like, sometimes we use phrases like coaching, oh, we're going to coach our teachers, but it's instructional coaching. And it's a whole different thing than if you're coaching sports or you're coaching something else, right? Like, so in instructional coaching, a lot of that falls into modeling. So I think the best thing we all can remember to practice doing is to practice putting words to what we're doing, because we just assume, like Diane goes, yes, we all know what this is, but we may have listeners who haven't, they may know the phrase fight or flight, and they may have recalled seeing somebody in that, but they may not, they may go, oh, that's just for certain folks, or not everybody does that, or we grow out of that. Not everybody
I,
grows out of that or
I
learns the
don't think
skills you're talking
anybody
about.
grows out of it.
But
And
but I think there are people who think people do, because they
yeah,
think, because
maybe.
we've learned to regulate, and I use that, those air
And
quotes.
again, it's that whole the all four C's, helping the teachers understand that I am helping you connect with me as your leadership, and I am helping you build capacity by coming into your classroom when you need a challenge, when you're having a challenging moment, and giving you the tools to co-regulate. And you know, that whole, I love the rainbow breath cards, right, where the kids trace the rainbow back and forth and back and forth. And I have met some adults who need to have rainbow breath cards in their pocket, because when they get all wound up, they don't know how to de-escalate themselves. And I think as a director, sometimes our job is to help our staff de escalate themselves, because they take it as a personal affront that that kid's not listening to me, or they're being disruptive. Or my favorite is when they go, oh, they're just trying to manipulate me. It's a 2-year old. That 2-year old is not trying to manipulate you. They're trying to get their needs met. Like,
Right. That's giving them a little too much thinking credit, and so that's the issue too, is that um, we need to remember that the younger the child, the stronger those messages from their brain and body, from the internal messages are. There's actually 80% of the communication is coming from the body to the brain versus the other way around. So I used to say, if a child saw a child, throwing blocks in the block area, and I'd walk over and I'd say, I can see you're choosing not to play with blocks. Well, actually, that child probably didn't choose that. They got dysregulated and they did the fight or flight thing.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of, that's why I wanted to add that in as we were talking about the 3 C's of co-regulation. And the other part is when we talk about strategies for the calming, The first part of that, of course, is to stay calm yourself. And can I just share one strategy that I love that's very simple?
Absolutely.
It came from Becky. I can't take credit. It came from Becky Bailey of Conscious Discipline, another of my heroes that I based my model on. And you take 3 deep breaths and you tell your brain, I kind of referred to this already a little bit. Your brainstem needs to feel safe, your limbic area needs to feel loved, and then your thinking area needs to be ready to think. So you take 3 deep breaths and you tell your brain, in a positive ways what it needs to do, because it actually is better, more effective than counting to 10. And so you take a deep breath and you say to your brainstem, I am safe. Take a second deep breath and you say to your limbic area, I am loved. And you take a third deep breath and you say to your executive functioning skills in your frontal lobes, I can handle this. I am safe. I am loved. I can handle this. Works for me in traffic every time.
You just brought up a great point, and that is exactly what I kept thinking in my head was how even what you're talking about to our directors, to our staff, are things they can apply every single day. And it's a great argument for why phones should not be in a classroom, because we've all had that day where we've had that one text message that's just kind of put us in a mood, or whatever. And it's hard to get out of it because we're cycling through, we're trying to remember it so we can deal with it later instead of taking ourselves and putting us in the calming corner and dealing with it. And I think that this is, I mean, to me, this could be a great argument for why personal cell phones, smartwatches, those kinds of things shouldn't necessarily be in a classroom when a teacher really needs to be with the children in their classroom. Because if the children are struggling with their own fight, flight capacity, compassion, lack of connection, right? All those things. If we are a teacher or an adult who is struggling through a lot of the same things these kids have been dealing with the last 5 years, and a lot of us probably haven't really sat down and went, well, yes, our connection is our piece of technology. And there's a reason why we hold it all the time and we need it all the time, is because that is the connection we've had the last 5 years, because we didn't have people. We couldn't necessarily connect to our extended people group.
And Kate, that's bringing us all the way back full circle to where we started when Carrie was saying how it looks like children are having more challenging behaviors. And it's because, for some of our younger kids, they started life during the pandemic, and it does have an impact. And we do need to focus our time in the classroom on human connections. The babies' brains are wired first and foremost to focus on people's faces. There's there's a reason that this far away, I don't know if you can see my arm. So I'm holding my arm up as if I'm holding a baby. And that distance from my arm to my eyes is pre-programmed to babies' brains. That's what they can focus on. And then as they grow, they are pre-programmed to learn from the 3D environment, and they discover their toes and their fingers and rattles, and on it goes. We are not programmed for screens. Okay.
We're not.
When
We're
they
not.
have done research and showed babies a screen and it looks like the baby's kind of having fun with it, when they wire the kids to, whatever non-invasive thing they do to figure out what part of the brain is firing up, which means it's active, guess what it is? The stress response.
Which is
So, yeah.
So my brain is now going, okay, we have to have her back for a second visit, because I now want to do a whole one on security objects with you, because we were talking about the blankets having become the security objects for the adults. And I know so many programs who are like, you can't bring anything from home. And I'm like, but you're letting everybody bring their phones into the classroom, but you won't let a kid bring their blankie. I want to do a whole session on that. Security items.
I would have I would have
had
had a really hard time. I was a blanket kid till I was 7 or 8. And I have children. I have 4 children, and they all had their version of that. Whether it was a, stuffed dinosaur or a pink rabbit or a brown rabbit or, whatever it was.
Whatever it was, but
yeah.
I don't know why, but that is in my head right now, as we have to have Diane back on so that we can talk about how security objects and letting kids have them plays into their sense of connection and their ability to self-calm. So that
Exactly.
gets 2 out of our 4, and having the compassion to let kids get their own security. I just got 3 of the 4 C's by just going, we need to be able to have a blankie. But I really want to have a whole conversation about security objects.
Actually, I think that's a book. I think that is like, you guys need to write a book on that one, which is the I need a blankie and why it's okay to be 7 and still have it. Because there was definitely
or 34, because
or
these
56.
little guys behind me, these are my daughter's security
Earworms.
objects, because she has special needs, including autism and other things. And that truly is something that she can have in her purse or pocket. And it's just something that's soothing for her. If we have a conversation on the phone and she says, Mom, I need some TLC, and I can say, she calls them earworms, and I can say, I'm sorry you're having a rough day. Earworm cares. I can just tell over the phone that she just, and don't we want that for all the children and ourselves when we're upset? So I'm not saying we all need a part, but some of us as adults like to have a fidget.
And that's probably part of knowing that whole earworm story is part of probably what connected in my subconscious and went, we need a second conversation on this topic.
Oh, that would be delighted. You know what? Maybe we could pull Corinne into that one.
But there's also probably something in your pocket, Carrie, that might have also reminded you of that.
I don't have anything in my pocket.
You don't have it in your pocket today?
I don't have any fidgets right now.
Your little satin piece. I thought that was almost always in your pocket.
No, I just take it when I travel.
Okay.
Okay, so
I'm sorry. I was like, it's in your pocket. I know it's in your pocket.
It's not. No, I use it so
empty your pockets, Carrie.
When I'm in a hotel.
I want proof. Show me your pockets.
I'm a fidget person, and it helps me get to sleep. So I think that we could probably keep going for another hour, and we need to let our listener get out of the car and go into their child care center. Or if they're listening on their way home, get out of their car and go into the house. So I want to wrap us up today. But guys, we're going to have Diane back on because I need this second conversation. And if there's another topic that you think we should have with Diane, so we need to have a third, go ahead and send us an email to Kate and Carrie at childcareconversations.com, or write it in a review on your podcast player of choice. Guys, if you learned something today, which I know you did, share the show with someone who needs to know. And if you would like to be part of one of these great conversations, again, send us an email at Kate and Carrie at Child Care Conversations. And we'd love to have a great conversation with you, just like we did today with Diane. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in. We love bringing you real talk and fresh insight from the world of early childhood education. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay connected and catch all of the latest episodes. And if you're planning a conference, training, or special event, Kate and Carrie would love to speak to your audience. You can learn more about their keynote sessions and workshops at kateandcarrie.com. If you learned something today, share the show and leave us a review below. We'll see you next time on Child Care Conversations.